midnight. Well, hiring rose more than expected last month. According to the Labor Department, employers added 228,000 jobs in November. Professional and business services, manufacturing and healthcare saw the biggest gains. The unemployment rate remained unchanged at 4.1%, but remains at a 17-year low. Both numbers continue a positive trend dating back to 2010. Seth Harris, the former Deputy U.S. Secretary of Labor and former Acting Secretary of Labor under former President Obama, is in Washington, joins us now. Seth, what do you make of today's numbers?
Well, Rita, the top line number, the 228,000 jobs created number is very good. It brings up the average for the year. But even so, 2017 has been the slowest year for job growth since 2010. Now, that's partly because we've had a lot of job growth. This is the 86th consecutive month of job growth going back to President Obama's first term. So we've done very well, but we are seeing a slowing now. And there's some other troubling things about this report.
Seth, when you look at President Trump, he's taken a great deal of credit for the job growth this year. And in fact, in a statement from the White House, they say, as we continue to unleash the American economy from unnecessary regulation and taxes, we look forward to seeing more reports like this showing a healthy and thriving jobs market for the American people. What do you say to that?
There's no relationship between the president's efforts to deregulate the economy and expose workers and consumers and the environment to a lot more risk and what's happening in the job market. This is the continuation of a steady jobs recovery ever since the Great Recession. If President Trump is going to take credit for jobs, he should also take responsibility for the fact that wages are not rising in a meaningful way for the overwhelming majority of workers. We've seen real wages, which is inflation-adjusted wages, increase by only 0.5% over the course of the last year. That is less than 1/3 of the growth in productivity, meaning there's a lot of growth happening. Employers are doing better, but workers are not getting their fair share. So if President Trump will take responsibility for flat and declining wages for workers, maybe we can throw him a little credit for some of the jobs.
When you look at the Republican tax bill, is there any way to gauge how this might impact job growth if it passes?
Well, there are some estimates out there. I'm not sure how much I trust them. I think I'm more inclined to believe that the tax bill is going to have very little impact on job creation. There may be a little bit of a sugar rush early on. We may see a little bit of a bump in the jobs numbers soon after the bill takes effect because there'll be a lot of money sloshing around and maybe some of that will get invested. But the overwhelming majority of corporations are being quite honest with us that they're going to use their tax breaks for stock buybacks, for dividends, for other purposes, not for job creation. They're not going to use it for new plants, new facilities. They're going to put more people to work. In fact, there's a meaningful risk that they'll put that money into technology that will displace workers. So this is not going to be a sustainable jobs growth strategy. It would have been better to put that $1.5 trillion that the Republicans in Congress are spending on tax cuts for the rich and wealthy corporations into a big, robust public infrastructure strategy that would create middle wage, middle skill, middle class jobs that we need in our country right now.
So when it comes to the labor market, as you look across the landscape, what's your biggest concern right now?
I got to say, I'm very worried about wages. We've had decades of stagnant and declining wages for the large majority of American workers. This month, the report tells us that workers got a nickel in pay increase on average. That's just not enough to help somebody save for retirement, save for their kids' college education, to pay their bills, to meet rising costs across the economy. This wages story is a big part of the reason that middle-class families and working-class families are so deeply frustrated with Washington. You know, Washington seems very focused on helping to drive profits up and put more money in the pockets of wealthy people, but they don't seem very focused on helping people work hard and make a living that's rising over the course of their lifetime. That's not good for our economy, and it's also not good for our democracy.
I know it's complicated, but if you were advising the president and you wanted to help increase wages for middle-class Americans, what could he do that could really make a difference?
Well, I'd like to see him, as I said, invest in that trillion-dollar infrastructure strategy that he talked about during the campaign. First of all, I'd say don't sign this tax bill because it's not going to increase wages in a meaningful way. But I'd also like to see him have government play a role in pushing wages up, raise the minimum wage, increase overtime protections, give people access to better jobs through a comprehensive skills and education strategy. Don't do what the tax bill will do, which is to make college education more expensive. College degrees extremely important to getting people higher wages. The strategy that he's taking now is almost the negative image of what you would want a president to do in order to raise wages in our economy. So I would say to him, turn around 180 degrees, go in the opposite direction, and live up to the campaign promises you made to those working class and middle class voters who supported you.
Secretary Seth Harris, thank you very much.
Thanks.